Welcome back to the Domestic Dad Podcast, where we're cleaning up the mess. On this episode, we've got Paul Garrett, born into a motorcycle community on the outskirts of San Bernardino, California. Paul had his first drink at age 5, and the rest was history. So let's grab a mop as Paul shares about the mess alcohol's made in his life and what he's done to find his faith and start cleaning it up. Has life gotten off track? Are you looking for some inspiration to be a better dad? People say all the time, I'd die for my kids. Okay, but would you live for them? Actually live? Get yourself healthy? Make better choices? Eliminate distractions? Would you lead them more intentionally? Would you get sober? Take better care of yourself, physically and mentally. You'd only have to die once. Your kids don't need you to die for them. They need you to live. Have you thought about getting sober, but you just didn't know where to start? If so, welcome to the Domestic Dad Podcast, your go-to destination for candid discussions on journeys into sobriety, parenting, and personal growth. I'm Nick Barnett, founder of the Domestic Dad Project. I've been a dad since I was 18 years old. I'm also a trauma survivor, an alcoholic, divorced, happily remarried, hardworking, humbled by life, domestic dad. On this podcast, you'll find interviews with people who have walked that path, including myself, coaches, mentors, and pastors who can help guide you on your journey. You're going to need resources and inspiration. You can find that here. This is the community for you to lean into so you can start living life as a domestic dad. So let's grab a mop and start cleaning up the mess. Oh, man.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, bro. Thank you for doing this.
Man, it's a pleasure. I'm excited to do this.
Right on. All right, dude. So I'll just get into it. So tell me what childhood was like for you.
Childhood, it was rough. I grew up in a bad little neighborhood. My mom married 2 different guys, and they were both bikers. So lived the lifestyle of a biker. Biological dad wasn't around. I had intermittent dads, if you will. A lot of mischief. Yeah, just in and out of juvie, police rap sheets.
Yeah. What were your parents like?
Like I said, my dad was not really in the picture. I was brought up and raised by my mom and my grandma. My grandma was pretty much the head of our house. She was a stronghold. She was the one that took me to church every Sunday. There was no questions about it. She was one of those people that you didn't mess with her Jesus. My mom struggled with addiction. Drugs, alcohol. I didn't realize how bad until later on, going through my own trials. But biological dad, age 15 or 16, he told me he didn't even want me. He didn't want to be a dad. He didn't want a kid. That kind of did something to me, but I respected him for at least telling me.
Pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
What was school like?
Oh, man, school, like I said, my grandma, she put me through a private school. It was a Christian school in San Bernardino, and I don't know how she did it, but she did it. And school was really good upbringing, but man, I was brought up where they were able to SWAT us, so the principal would give us SWATs, and I literally was in there every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times. I was just a horrible kid. And school until I got into high school, and high school was a public school, and after that I just took off. Yeah,
by take off you mean hit the streets or took off?
Did my own thing, explored, if you will. And I didn't know that kind of life was out there. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, when was the first time that you drank?
Age 5. I was 5 years old. Like I mentioned, my mom, she married a prominent, and our house was the party house. Growing up, I was a little guy, and my initials were PW, and so it evolved into Pee-wee. And so it was always, Pee-wee, go get me a beer. Pee-wee, go get so-and-so a beer. So it started out with getting them a beer, and then it went into taking the first sip, and then it turned into guzzling it, and mind you, all the adults are cheering me on, so I'm happy. I'm getting all the attention, but I don't necessarily remember being drunk or nothing like that, but there's so many childhood pictures of me with beer cans in my hand. But that was my first drink, and later on I found my mother's, I think I was about 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9. I found my mom's Kessler bottle, and yeah, it was on from there.
You're a whiskey guy.
I am.
Did you ever, as you were growing up, did you ever think that there was anything wrong with that in the moment?
Yeah. Something told me it was wrong because every time I did it on my own, I hid it. Something told me it wasn't right. However, something also told me that there was something special about me because when I got around the adults, they let me drink. So I thought that was the normal thing. When adults are around, you can have a little bit. But something told me it wasn't right because, like I said, when I started hiding it and getting into my parents' stash, I hid it. So I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah. What were you like? What do you remember yourself being like when you drank?
Oh, I got very feisty. Loved to fight. That was my big thing. It sounds dumb, but I loved getting punched and just, I don't know, it was just something about it that I really enjoyed. And so I would pick fights with people. I didn't even care if I lost. I just wanted to fight.
You were good at it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know if I was good at it, but man, it's what I knew growing up. That's how I survived. And then I was also the crazy guy. People say, "Oh, I bet you won't," and everyone says, "Oh, Paul will do it."
No limit, huh?
There wasn't. There wasn't. A lot of times there was not.
Yeah. Tell me about a time when you were like the most drunk that you can remember when you were a kid growing up.
I have quite a few. As a kid, the one that still haunts me today is there was this abandoned house. It was just the walls were up, no roof, no nothing, and that was our place to run and get high and get drunk. And we also played Russian roulette with my best friend's brother and dad's revolver that they had. And we played it, and my friend took one to the head right in front of us. And it still haunts me. I remember immediately sobering up because we were just on one. And there was times where I tied a rope around my friend's balcony, around the banister on the outside, and underneath he had these sliding doors. And so I opened it, and there was a party, and we were all pretty lit. And I told him I was going to do an Indiana Jones, so I opened the door, went upstairs, jumped out, and tried to swing into the house. Yeah, again, no limit out at concerts, and again, picking fights just for no reason. Just being belligerent, really.
Yeah. Wow, man. How old were you when that happened with the Russian roulette?
Oh, we started around age, I want to say between 9 and 11. Yeah. I mean,
I have a 12-year-old myself, and I cannot imagine him having to see something like that happen. Wow.
yeah.
That's powerful.
Like I said, I didn't realize how traumatic it was. I just shoved it down, and later on.
What you said right there, you just shoved it down. I think that resonates quite a bit with me personally, because there's a lot of stuff that you come out of the ether, so to speak, of it all, and you have all these recollections of these just nightmarish things that happen. And it's like when it all comes to and it hits you, I guess that's crazy, man.
Yeah, and growing up, we were always taught, be a man, real men don't cry. I don't want to hear that, and being called women's genitalia, just stupid things that now I'm like, I wouldn't do that to my kids. I wouldn't do that to another guy.
Yeah, as men, I think we're hardwired that way, to suck it up or challenge each other to suck it up and not deal with the things. And what ends up happening more often than not, and this is just in my experience and what happened to me.
Absolutely.
I ended up having to lie to myself about those things. And one of the tools that I used to perpetuate that lie was alcohol. And I think to a certain degree, you start to drink to cope with just the trauma that you've endured. And I think that just the things that you've shared with me so far are Pretty doggone traumatic. Wow.
Yeah.
When you started to notice that you were different, like the hiding it and things like that, was it drinking to cope? Was it weekend benders, or was it just like excessive drinking all the time?
As a kid, it was few and far. It wasn't like every day. Going through high school, probably getting high or drunk anywhere from 3 to 6 times a week. So it's pretty excessive. But later on, I became a dad at the age of 20 or so, somewhere around the 24, and I curbed it for a bit and tried to go the straight route, cut off a lot of people that were not the right influence. Then it was just kind of parties here and there, and not until this last few years, I just out of control every day, bottle after bottle. I didn't understand it, nor could I stop it. Yeah.
That's okay, right on. What obstacles did drinking create for you in parenthood?
Oh, keeping a job, communication with, I've been married twice now, communication with my wife's at the time, with friends, dreams of wanting to do things, and they just get pushed aside because I drank, and I didn't have the will to do anything.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I can remember is just embarrassing myself. Then it would create like this whole insecurity inside that just kept getting like, I would get insecure about stuff like, dang, I did that. You know?
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where I'd get in trouble. It just created a lot of, I think I went to jail. I don't know if you have any of those, but man, as far as like being a parent, those are just like the things that you never want to teach your kids.
No, I actually got my one and only DUI when my son was, oh man, he was months old, and his mom was finally ready to go out a night and let him stay with grandma. We can let loose. She wasn't drinking at all because she was breastfeeding, and so it was time to let loose, right? And she had a little too much, and of course, all my life, oh, I'm fine. I can handle it. And I got popped. But even when I look back at that, God was with me, because it was a male and a female cop. And the male, he clanked me up and put me in the back seat, but the female got in our car, drove my wife home, and I didn't have to worry about the car being towed, my wife, nothing like that. And just drove away in the back of the cop car. And yeah, that was my one and only that, by the grace of God, I got.
Yeah, isn't it funny how many times you can look back on and be like, gosh, I should have gotten in trouble for that. Oh my goodness, maybe I shouldn't even be alive right now because of that. There's a lot of just fear, what you allowed yourself to do, man.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's where it's at. That's where the anxiety takes root sometimes.
Yeah.
That kind of takes me to my next point, Paul, is the mental health of it all. I think talk to me about how because in my experience with being an alcoholic, a symptom of alcoholism is just mental health issues, right? From anxiety to depression to just self-deprecation to just not thinking very much of myself or what my value to other people are. Did you go through any of that stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, all my life, if you were to meet me in person, you would see that I've had to deal with a certain thing. I was born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate and a hole in my heart. So I got all these abnormalities, if you will. So that made me feel different right off the bat and insecure. And that was a lot of drinking erased it. I was like others. Yeah, exactly. And that's all I wanted, man, because I was tired of being bullied and made fun of and whatever. But yeah, so then I started thinking, maybe this is all I'm worth. This is who I am. There's no way someone like me can do anything good. Look at all the trouble I've caused my parents, my grandma, and friends, and cops, and teachers, and pastors, and then I think about it, and boom, depression, anxiety. Some of my jobs required me to get up in front of people and teach classes, hospital staff, and man, I was out of place, out of sorts, And that just, now I need something to cover that. So yeah, I dealt a lot with mental health. I didn't even know what that was until it started to really take root and be noticed. And I thought, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me too.
Yeah, finding yourself is hard in those moments.
Yeah, I've always had a notion of what I was supposed to do in this life, but man, I didn't realize the capacity of it, and I didn't realize how much I need to rely on God to actually do it.
Yeah. So tell me about, and I'm just going to be candid, when did shit hit the fan for you? When did you know that it was time to get sober? Because I think with my own journey, I can remember a very specific time for myself when I was like, all right, I've tried this in different times and I've gotten to a certain point and then I go backwards, right? I feel like I'm okay enough to drink again. And then I'll just be like, I'll try it. I can control this. But there's a certain moment when I remember I was like, I have to submit and just know that this isn't something that I can control and I have to stop. And there was a whole lot that went into that. But do you have a moment in mind that like you can recall when it was just, you had to say, hey, it's over?
Yeah, I've had a couple, because I've had a couple of relapses. A relapse is a part of my story. But the first one, the last 7 years, I had a job where I flew all over different states. Every week I was somewhere different. And in a nutshell, I racked up in about a year and a half, I racked up $20,000 in debt on a credit card because I was hiding all the drinking I was doing on the road, in the bars, and whatnot, and I was hiding it from my wife, my now wife. And I had to come clean about that, and that was not pretty, but we got through it. And I ended up going to rehab. I lasted, I believe, 11 days and relapsed, and happened 2 more times. I brought home, I think one was like 8,000 something and the other was 9,000 something. And they were just all me drinking. That's it. Just drinking all day long, drinking. And I had to do something different. My wife said that we needed time apart. And to answer your question, sorry, but it was seeing the hurt on her face, carnage that I caused. And my sons, I have 4 sons, and seeing the hurt on their face, that really told me I got to do something different. And I went to a different rehab and did things differently that time. But that was when I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. At one point, I was taking pictures of my hotel room, and I was sending it to my boys, my dogs. And one of them says, what did you do, party with Motley Crue? There was just bottles everywhere, takeout bags. It was disgusting. And at that point, because the very next day I called my healthcare provider and got help, and that got me into my second stint in rehab. But that made me sick for the first time, because before I was proud of that, man, because it looked like there was about 4 or 5 of us in there. Yeah, but it was just me. And then when one of my own boys was like, dude, that's a little, and you're at work? Yeah, I'm at work. So that's really when I knew that I can't stop, because I tried stopping. I would go into withdrawals alone in hotel rooms. Yeah, it just was all bad.
Yeah. So when you did rehab, what kind of skills did you guys start, or did you specifically start to build? Was there anything like, and I'll just give you an example of what I did. And I think that's, I don't know, you can tell me what you did, but I connected with a mentor. Some folks have a sponsor. I definitely got a stronger connection with my faith, because I mean, I've always had God in my life, but it just got a lot stronger in my journey into sobriety. I built a lot of community and camaraderie amongst people. Just got more consistent. Did you work on anything like that?
Yeah, wow, did I? Yeah, so the tools I learned, really noticing, like we were saying earlier, about what causes this pain that I shoved down, that comes back and covering up. I didn't know nothing about that. And all these sayings that they say in rehab, they hit different right now. And I write them all down. I try to memorize them. But definitely the number one thing was my faith. I got down on my knees and literally got down on my knees. My health was atrocious. I was just out of control, sick. It was all bad. And so I had nowhere else. But sometimes that's what God does to us. He allows us to be alone and feel lonely so that we recognize that all we have is Him. I don't need anybody else, anything else. All I need is Him, and He'll provide the rest. So definitely my faith. I went through a couple of sponsors. I lost one due to my relapse. The guy I have now is flipping phenomenal. I love him. God put us together, and definitely I call him. Just the other day I called him and said, hey, I'm having these feelings, these thoughts. And he goes, let's talk about it. Before it was like, no, I don't talk about it. But they say move a muscle, do something different. And I'm doing something different. I am so uncomfortable being at a men's sober living home right now. I could have easily went back home. I knew I had to do something different. And yeah, so definitely my faith. I have such a strong support system at home with my home church, with my friends, my family. I have my godparents. I call them mom and dad. Yeah, so those are all my tools I rely on right now.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
One other thing.
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I didn't say this earlier, but you would have thought that I would have learned my lesson. But at age 16, I was confronted with having to pull the plug on my stepdad. He was dying of cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholism. And my mom says, Pee-wee, I can't do it. You're going to have to make that decision. So I made that decision. And then the second time was with my biological mom. Same thing, sepsis, cirrhosis of the liver, alcoholism. I had to pull the plug on her. And then the third time was my biological dad. The most time I ever spent with him was next to him at his bedside while he was in the hospital dying, and had to make that choice again. Third time. And you would think, man, Paul, those 3 times alone should have told you. And then your wife telling you, your second wife telling you all these things, but I never admitted that I was an alcoholic.
When did you admit that you were an alcoholic? How long ago?
I would say my first rehab, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How empowering is that?
Oh, I cried, not going to lie. I sat at the big table there at the house, and I knew. Oh, I knew. And I admitted it out loud, and I lost it. I don't even remember the minutes after that, but yeah.
Yeah, not only empowering, but empowering at the same time to know that you have to submit to that. But I think there's so much bright future after that when you can actually admit it to yourself and move the ball forward, because then you have this point in time that you can go back to and be like, you know what? It's never going to change, right? It's like getting a diagnosis. Okay, now I know what to do. You know what I mean? Now I know the right medicine to take to fix this. I think there's just...
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What made you decide to share your journey, man?
That kind of goes in line with, like I said, I always had a feeling. My grandma, when I wasn't even born yet, and the doctors had said, hey, your kid's not going to run and play like the other kids. It would probably be best to terminate the pregnancy. And that's why I say my grandma, she was like, no, you don't mess with my Jesus. And she always told my mom, and then my mom told me later on that Paul, he's God's special kid. And growing up, I always thought, moms and grandmas, they'll tell you that. They just love us. But, man, going through my life, I see it clearly. I know that I am supposed to be doing God's work and sharing His love, sharing his truth, sharing his message, and now I got my own message that I could hopefully touch, reach someone that might feel the same way, act the same way. I don't know what it is. That's not even up to me. That's up to God. But all I know is this second time around, I said, God, use me. Use my message, but make it yours. Just use me. And I, at that point, knew this is going to be a wild ride, and it has not let me down. It has. But, yeah, I just want to help. I just want to help others. That's the name of the game right now.
Inspiration, I think, is the word that we're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can we inspire somebody else that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope, that there is a community of people that have been through it?
Yes.
And that are willing to walk next to you as you go through it.
That's it right there.
You may not even know, and you might not ever know those people until you start walking in those, like walking that path.
Yep.
I think I'm over 600 days sober now. And when I first, I think every in my immediate circle, like my family, most of my friends knew I wasn't drinking because I clearly wasn't drinking. But once I like posted on Facebook about it, man, I got a ton of inbox messages, and the majority of them it was like, hey, dude, me too.
Yeah.
I would have had no idea that this guy or that gal are also doing the same thing, or also have feelings of there is a problem here and I need to fix it. And it was almost like I got to be friends with people I never even considered being friends with. Like, we were acquaintances, but then that kind of molded us together, and it's like all these more branches of friendship have extended, and it's, man, and not one of my employers, or you know what I mean, anybody that like I was working with at the time was like, oh, you're an alcoholic, huh? Yeah. It wasn't like that. It was like, dude, I'm proud of you. You know what I mean? Stay on it. And if you need anything, let me know, because I want to support you in this journey. It was like, holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I have a brother the second time around when I had to let everything out to my wife again. There's a guy at my church, and he's in recovery, and he voices his recovery. And I went up to him Sunday after church and said, hey, you got a minute to talk? And I teared up. And he's, yeah, let's go. So we went outside. I told him what was going on. As a matter of fact, his little daughter and his wife came over, and he's, hey, Paul and I need to talk. Just wait. He knew. Yeah. He knew. But I always think, had I not known, I wouldn't have gone to him. I wouldn't have got the help. Then there's another guy at my church. He's, hey, I'm praying for you. I don't know what you're going through, but I do have a friend he's sober now for I forget how many years. He hooked me up with him. Now we're friends on Facebook. So yeah, that network, man, is no joke.
All right, man. What's your biggest accomplishment since getting sober?
Oh, I would have to say my number one relationship with Jesus Christ again. It's loud and proud, and would have to be enrolling into school again. I want to get my degree in chaplaincy.
Wow. Really called.
Yes. Yeah. And now maybe I could take it to the prisons, the H&I panels that they talk about in the rooms, take it to the prisons, take it to the hospitals, take it to the streets. You name it, I've been there. So I need to get out there and reach those. It's a calling.
Right on. Tell me what your day-to-day looks like since getting sober compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, so better is my devotion time, my prayer time. He's the first one I speak to in the morning and the last one at night. I don't know, I still think I'm crazy because in my head, I play out all these, whatever happens during the day, I play them out as like sermons, messages. And my old pastor years ago says, you've been anointed. Don't disregard it. And I never thought of it. But yeah, so day to day would be definitely more in touch. I definitely try to think differently and respond differently, passionately, lovingly, and not be elusive and disregard things or people and their feelings. I try to be a little more in touch on a day-to-day like that, and definitely helping others in any way, opening doors for people. There's so much.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how much more your servant heart comes out when you have that clarity of mind? Like,
Absolutely.
you open up to be serving to others, and that's one of the things for me, especially.
Yeah, it's all about you want to get that message to other people. Absolutely.
Hey, if you could go back in time and tell yourself something on day one of sobriety, what would it be?
Trust the process, both in your faith, in your day-to-day living, how God works. Trust the AA process or NA, whatever you're in. Truth. Be true to yourself and to God, because so many years I was lying to myself and trying to lie to God. We know how that works out. But I was lying to everybody. But definitely trust and truth. Be honest.
When people ask me, they're like, "Hey, Nick, what are the tricks? You got to tell me the tricks. Like, how do you do that?" And I'm like, I always say this, and anybody that you would talk to that knows me, when they ask me that, they would tell you that I said one thing: it's not tricks, it's truth.
Yeah.
And you have to be honest with yourself. And once you do that, you can move the ball forward.
Absolutely.
I told a lot of lies. To myself, man. I was a big liar. I lied to myself more than anybody in this world.
Yeah.
What was going on inside of me, or who I was, and it's just once you can have some truth about that, you'll be okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times you find yourself lying for no reason.
Yeah. You have no trust equity.
Yeah.
And especially with yourself.
Yep.
You got to build trust equity. I think that's a big lesson.
Absolutely.
We learned
Yep.
This whole thing. So, all right, dude. What's the biggest mess that you have cleaned up since getting sober?
I got a couple, I think. Number one is my relationships with, like, my wife, my sons. Even though it's not all cleaned up, it's there. It's in the process of happening. And the other big mess, I kid you not, is my health. I just wasn't good. And I was drinking to, again, tell myself that I'm okay. But so the biggest mess, I'll give it to you like this. My highest weight was 3. I'm only like 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'7", somewhere in there. But I was quite heavy, and right now I'm down about 65, 67 pounds. That's on the way. But my biggest, I'm happy, man. I'm putting in anywhere from 13,000 to 19,000 steps a day. So I'm very happy with that. And then my A1C was 14.8, and they want you down below 7.0. So I was just a walking, ticking bomb. And my last results that I just got, I'm at 7.2.
There you go. Congratulations.
So that's a huge mess that I had going on. And the one contributor, alcohol.
Yeah, I can relate. I think I was 90 days at one point, and I went in and I got like my blood work done at my family doc, and he was like, "You know how I used to have you on like statins? I don't think so anymore. Hey, you're I don't know, is it LDC, all that stuff?"
Yeah.
It was all down. Like it was in fringe yellow, and now it's in the green. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started working out a lot more, like running and getting into like fitness and stuff like that. But yeah, like that for those, like after 90 days of sobriety, it's like all these things, all your numbers start to drop. And it's
yes.
Like,
yes.
That stuff will do a number on you, man.
Man. Yeah. And then you do it more to cover it. It's absurd.
Yeah. Oh, what keeps you smiling, Paul? What keeps you smiling every day?
My sobriety. I think to myself, look at you now, Paul. Not cocky, but man, look at you with your, before I couldn't put in 500 steps. I said, look at you now. That keeps me smiling. My wife's smile and my son's smile again. Man, does that just light me up, but in a good way this time. Yeah, but definitely my sobriety and just doing good keeps a smile on my face. It just makes a difference of trying to do good to others. Makes you smile.
Right on. That's all I got.
All you
That's
got.
all I got. I think it's incredible what faith can do for a person. And I think your story is especially important because it's wrapped around faith. What a good father figure I had in my life once taught me that if you're going through something, just stop and pray about it. And I think that's really at the end of the day what your story tells me is that if you stop and pray about it, your faith will help you find the way.
Absolutely. For me, it's Jesus Christ. He is my personal Savior. And you reach out to Him, and you can communicate to Him daily, all day long, and talk to Him just like a normal person. And it's amazing how much that helps.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to thank you with all my heart. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps us out. Also, please follow us on Facebook or share this episode on your social media. You can also join our community by grabbing some merch. It means the world to me to know that this podcast is making a difference in someone's life. And if this episode inspired you to get sober or simply become a better version of yourself, you can claim your free 60-minute coaching session by visiting www.domesticdadproject.com. Let's continue supporting each other to break the stigma around dads reaching out for help to get our lives on track while navigating the obstacles of fatherhood. Until next time, keep cleaning up the mess. Don't forget, if you have questions about getting sober, parenting, or personal growth, to email Nick at domesticdadproject.com with any questions about cleaning up the messes you've made. And if your question is discussion worthy, we'll feature it on the Ask Nick session of our next episode.